Hey everyone, welcome back for another video. I wanted to talk today about Archaon. I've been reading through like all my White Dwarfs. I'm catching up on a bunch of reading essentially for different parts of AoS and for 40k. But in AoS, it's funny because with a lot of the Warcry stuff that's come out and talking about Gur, they discuss like Archaon and the reason why those warbands are fighting, trying to get Archaon's attention. And they, in it keeps on repeating in different articles that like the battle between Archaon and Be'lakor, that Archaon is got so close to ascension to the Pantheon, but didn't quite make it, and is now in AoS is fighting Be'lakor for who's the most powerful, like I guess champion of chaos, and like what does a guy have to do to ascend? Like he blew up the Warhammer Old World, he won, right? And this kind of gets into some of the like I guess things I think they could do better for AoS, where in terms of storyline and models and some of the things, like in general, I think it's great, right? In general, I really do like AoS. I feel like again, if people give it a chance, you get really into it. And I was of that mindset of they blew up my world, I'm not interested at all. But once you start reading into it and reading some of the lore, there are some really cool things. But at the same time, they've dropped the ball on some of the things, and I'm just kind of like, this was badly done. But this one, like this model came out for the end times, right? Like this is again, the lifespan of the models, you have to think 20 years now, basically, right? Where they want to sell this kit for 20 years minimum. And like again, I know some cases it might be like, well, this was 15 years, but what the average one, they want to do 20 years. So with this, we're going to have this for a long time, but I think this is again an AoS missed opportunity where you could have started off with that starter box with that had the Stormcast come out, and I still do like the Stormcast. I like the look of them. I do like their lore, and I think that they're one of the factions that does it right, where Sigmar doesn't fight and sends his representatives to fight for him, which is what they should do for everything. Because again, when Archaon and Teclis start fighting, what's the point of everything else on the table when you've just got these huge like 800 point, 600 point, the models that cost, if you're playing a 2,000 point game, more than a quarter of your army, right? And especially with Archaon, where when the bigger battles are happening, he shows up, it's like, well, this is over, right? Like Archaon's here, this is done. I think it would have been cooler to ascend Archaon, right? Like I really think that you could even do it as like Archaon ascends and another champion takes his helm. Like you could have a new champion. He selects someone to be his undivided champion, and like do something where maybe Archaon combined with the dragon, and he's this huge demon prince, even, right? That he is the like some insane like next level where even he's maybe just beneath the pantheon, but people are worshiping him as a god, right? And from continually reading that sentence where, they worded exactly the same too, where it's he was so close to ascension, and right. And I just don't understand what you need to ascend if you are blowing up planets and winning wars, these massive wars for chaos, right? Like what does a guy have to do, honestly? So I just want to make this video to kind of throw it out there that what do people think of Archaon right now? Because essentially, with all of the lore and especially more the advancing storyline with AoS and 40k, it's moving so quickly. Every month, pretty much, I would say it's changing fairly drastically almost. Maybe you'll have a month where it's like, oh, there was a sighting of Angron. Like they'll drop a tidbit somewhere in a White Dwarf or in a new Battle Tome or Codex or whatever for something that's upcoming. But going off of that, you're just always getting hyped up. And with this, like again, Archaon just shows up and wrecks, right? So within AoS, I think one of the weakest parts of the storyline is that you have Sigmar who stood back and said, like, there was the wars of the gods before, and I like that idea that now they are above these petty squabbles, but they need people to worship them for power. They want to control the realms. Like, there's still lots of lore and lots of cool stuff going on there. But when Nagash, the god of death, shows up and kills everybody, right? Especially in the books, I'd say it's more jarring, where on the tabletop, it's a nightmare to face these characters, really. There's ways to kill them, right? There's strategies and everything else, but in the books where it's like, well, it's got to be God versus God, right? Like, Teclis fighting Nagash, right? Like, no one else could have fought Nagash, straight up, right? Like, they can stall him or throw troops to delay him or try and weaken him for someone else to fight, but there's nothing anyone can do against these characters in the game. And it's with a lot of TV shows and other things where they write themselves into a corner where they make things too powerful, right? Archaon, Nagash, Teclis, too powerful. It's too much, right? So I hope that they ascend Archaon. See, that's interesting and new to me, right? You could have him be the greater god of chaos undivided, right? There is no real god there. There's fledgling demon princes. Like, there's a lot of things that fall under chaos undivided. And in AoS, maybe having this, like, man ascending, right, to this place in the pantheon where he crushes in, and now there's 5 chaos gods in AoS, right? I still think in 40k they should ascend Be'lakor, right? That's more interesting to me. Give him a legion. Give him the Night Lords, right? See, now we're doing some crazy new stuff, right? He can have shadow demons. I've said that in other videos too, right? Doing those 2 things in each one of the universes would really switch things up, and I'm for it, right? Just like Slaanesh, there was a new god added on, even though it's tough because it's the young god, and again, in the storyline, it's like 10,000 years old now, but people still think of that god as the new god, right? Well, let's throw in another one. Slaanesh is now an old god, right? Let me know in the comments what you think. I'd like to see some more changes in that way. It won't happen, though. There's been too much of a commitment. Like with Kragnos just came out, right? They're not going to be like, well, we'll get rid of the god models, right? You can't do that. But even Kragnos could have been gaining power, right? I think that the model is too powerful, too many points. Having it come out that Kragnos is weak because he doesn't have as many worshippers. So Kragnos is trying to gain more orcs, humans, whatever he can get to worship him, and as that happens, he gains power. So now you can have over time, maybe he gets filtered out eventually, right? But have him be that he's a weaker form right now. Having him come out and start front kicking everything nonstop and no one can beat him. Like, what's the point of these huge armies and all these other things when you just keep introducing these overpowered characters that no one can stop, right? They need to teleport him away. No one can stop him, right? Like, I don't understand that. I never like reading or feeling like in these stories where it's just an impossibility for people to win. We're getting through alliances or backstabbing or whatever. Things can go wrong. Things can reinforcements can show up. Like, things can happen within the battles, but it's moving more and more in these stories to just having like a cool fights going on, characters are dying, stuff's going on, and then the gods showed up, and then okay, well, they fought, that's decided, then everyone can go home, right? Again, let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think they should ascend Archaon? Have you even thought about this? I was messaging a friend of mine being like, do you think this is a good idea? And he was like, that I never even thought about that, right? Because I think that as the story's progressing, people just kind of go like, okay, well, this is what's going on, and not trying to be like, I think that they could do it a little bit better. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button. There'll be more content coming. I'm going to make a bunch more stuff, so stay tuned. I'll see everyone in the next video.